Hello, friends. It's that time for the Get to Know Her show. Thank you very, very much for being here. I've got my glasses on today because I have lots of notes. I am going to introduce you to a phenomenal woman who has so many facets to her. She just amazes me. I'm guessing she also operates on a 24-hour day, but with all of the things she accomplishes, it seems like a lot more. Brooke Gordon is with us today on the Get to Know Her show, and she is a personal coach. She helps women to live their dreams. She's a health coach, a career mentor, a volunteer with Soroptimist, an advocate for Canadian women entrepreneurs, which is really up our alley. And she's going to talk to us about all of those wonderful things. So I'm going to bring her on right now. Here's Brooke. Hi, Brooke.
Hi.
This is so exciting.
I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. You're amazing. I was just saying to the folks, I'm pretty sure that you also operate on a 24-hour day, but with all of the things you do and your enthusiasm, I'm like, maybe she's got a day with more hours than I do.
I covet my sleep.
Oh, you're amazing. And even I wanted to say, before I do a show like this, I always send out, questions to my guests of what to expect that I might be asking. And you fired back with all of this information. And I'm just so grateful to you. Like you took the time and you wrote all your story out for me, and you really put a lot of effort into it. So I think that speaks to you as a person.
Thank you.
You really plan things out. I also wanted to let people know, Brooke, that you are the last person who walked through my studio doors on March what day was it?
I think it was the Friday or the Monday, one of the two.
It was the Friday.
It was the 13th. Yeah.
It was the Friday the 13th.
No. And then all our offices were just shutting down that day. I just come back from a whole bunch of just being all around the province for International Women's Day.
That's right. Mm-hmm. My God. Yeah. And it's so amazing how it all came together, because you and I were trying to get together since the new year, and you had things happening, I had things happening. And then it was like this day appeared for us, and you came in, remember? And we said, what do we do? Can we hug? No, I guess we can't hug. Should we sanitize our hand? Okay. And we did all that. Like, we just didn't know what was going on. And you just look how the world's changed since then.
I know.
Crazy.
Yes.
So that was a wonderful visit we had. I'm so happy that I had you here at least the one time. And who knows, the future, will hold lots of exciting things for you and I. So You'll be back.
Oh, yeah. For sure I will. That was the day I sneezed. Oh, wait. I know.
Yes, that's right. You got your little earrings. Yeah. And you were so patient. That's another thing. So you had custom ordered some things that you wanted to wear for upcoming events and different things you were doing. And then the world shut down, and I was like, Brooke, I'm so sorry, but my suppliers, like, I don't know when I can get these beat. And you were like, don't worry about it. It's all good. I know where to go. You were so patient. So I was very grateful for that.
Oh, it's all good. Great. It's all good.
Yeah. So I'm excited to talk to you about everything. And I always love starting. My favorite topic is childhood and little Brooke. And I want to get to know her. And looking at your notes here, I understand you had a lot of energy and a little bit of feistiness in you.
I did. My mom was quite convinced that I was going to be a lawyer because I was so argumentative. So always trying to make my case, always trying to, figure out how to put things forward and coming up with all kinds of ideas. And she's told me a few times she thought I would be a lawyer. But no, I actually started my very first business when I was 8. So where we lived in England at the time, and my dad was there for work. And we went just sort of down this laneway. There was a post office, and they had these bonbons, Monica. Oh my gosh, they'd probably so gross to me now, but they were pink with like a little powdery coating on the outside, and I think they were like a strawberry flavor, and I loved them, and I didn't have an allowance. So at the end of our street was like a cul-de-sac, and there was lavender bushes down there. And my mom grew roses, beautiful roses. And so she had told me, you're not allowed to pick any of the petals off the roses, but you can, if there's any leaves that fall or petals that fall, you can have those. So I remember her telling me that one day she looks outside her window in the kitchen and there's like everything's moving around, and she thought there was like this terrible storm coming, but like it didn't make sense. And what she couldn't see, sort of came up to look down the window and realized there we are, shaking the hell out of her rose bushes, trying to get all the petals to fall off. So we were still within the rules.
You saw opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. So I used to make perfume. I would like make it, it's so gross now, but I would make it in the sink in the bathroom, and I had rose petals and lavender, and I would make these eau de toilettes, and I used, I'm old enough that we used to have like the camera film cases.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. So that was my packaging, and I would sell them to all the moms on the street for like, we had something like 2 pence or 5 cents there. And then that way I would have money to go and buy my bonbons.
I cannot believe it.
That's was sort of my
so innovative.
And my parents indirectly funded it by letting me buy all these, like, because I like to doing a lot of photography. So I took up photography and I kept taking all these pictures, but I took the pictures because I wanted to keep a film case so I could sell more. They would have just been better to let me have the candy, but whatever. That was my first foray into entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Did a couple other things after that. I ran a business making, like, designing kids' hats and tote bags and purses. That was called Bonnets and Bags. And I've had a couple other businesses. And then I did graphic design. It was called Liquid Design, and we did web development and marketing. So I had that for a couple of years. And then pivoted entirely. Believe it or not, I didn't go to school for business. I went to school for engineering.
Yes. And this is inspired by your dad?
It really was. My dad's an engineer in nuclear physics, and I recently retired, and just really influenced. So myself, one of my sisters were both engineers, and so I ended up studying. I really became fascinated with lasers. I was really good in math and science, and so that's what I started going to school for. So I studied engineering physics. I've got my first degree in that. Loved it so much, I stayed on. I did a master's in the manufacture of semiconductor lasers.
Wow! So you went all the way through with this. This wasn't just like dip your toes in.
No, I've got a patent. I've got a couple of published papers in the field. And I never worked in the field. Around the time I graduated, that's not where the market had gone. You might remember Nortel, some of the other companies were collapsing. So I pivoted, and that's when I ended up I got invited by one of my professors who knew me to go into a pilot class. So I was one of the only females in a small class of 5. And so I actually did another graduate degree in commercialization. Which is taking a new product out into the market, which sort of really sad. They knew I was entrepreneurial. They knew I'd had a few businesses. And so I ended up starting a radio pharmaceutical company through that with one of the professors. So that was the next sort of foray. So lots of different career hopping. And as you mentioned before, now I have my own podcast. I'm a health coach, so More Than Good Food, talking about healthy living for busy women. And my full-time job is I'm an advocate for women entrepreneurs at BDC, which is the Business Development Bank of Canada. Yeah. And honestly, Monica, I'm loving every minute of my life right now. I'm present and I'm loving where I am, but none of it is what I imagined when I was a little kid.
Oh, that's great. Well, you know what? It started with those rose petals. You saw an opportunity and this is what you're doing. I think it's great. I hope the rose petals are on your resume, by the way. They better be.
That's a great story. My mom told me about that years later. I don't remember parts of it. But she's like, I'm just looking out the window. I was like, what is going on?
I can see it in cartoon. Like, it's hilarious. Oh, that's great. So with your position at BDC, Brooke, I'm really interested to hear about people in business right now. And I also want to thank you so much. You did a beautiful post on your page about my Get to Know Her show. And you talked about how I had developed this and I've pivoted my business. And it was so great. Like, and I really, really appreciate that. It was a beautiful testimonial. And on that topic, I'm curious to know, do you find you are working with a lot of female entrepreneurs who are now, because their businesses are not being run the way they were used to, and perhaps not at the pace that they were used to, they are taking a look at other areas where they've always had a passion and they've never been able to explore it because they didn't have the time? Are you finding you're getting a lot of new business ideas from your clients right now?
I would say there's sort of two answers to that. So one of them is, so in my role, so my technical role, I'm the senior advisor for women entrepreneurs. And one of the things that has just warmed my heart so much is how many women are reaching out because they want to know how to start their own business.
Oh, great.
And
I've
like I know, right?
Awesome.
And the mantra is sort of now or never. Like I've had this idea and now seems like the right time. So I'm deeply encouraged by that, and very blessed that BDC has so many resources available for free on their website around all different types of topics. It's called the Entrepreneur's Toolkit. I actually, for this, I've got, if you go to my Instagram, I've got a link tree there, and there's a couple links to some of those resources for anyone who's listening is looking for those. So that's sort of one of them, is just how many women are actually starting a new business and how encouraged I am by that. And then the other one is, I'd say, how many women are pivoting what they're doing. And so, just rethinking from a strategic level, okay, I need to diversify my income. So a lot of time spent one-on-one, face-to-face. A lot of women work in sectors whether they're either in hospitality or retail, or they are in a helping industry. And so in those cases, there's a lot of contact. And so they're rethinking, what could I do? So I've had everything from a hairdresser who's decided to become a life coach as well, so she can sort of expand out into that, right through to, large companies who are thinking, okay, how do I expand my distribution? So, how do I get into the US? How do I get into Western Canada? And so a lot of, at every level, people are thinking about, what can I do differently? And in some cases, it's how do I reopen? How do I just, bring back to where I was? And in other cases, it's how do I dream bigger from here? How do I sort of give myself permission to do something completely different? Because everything right now is completely different.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. That really resonates, because I think that's something, when you do the same thing for so long, you do sort of put yourself in a box, and you see yourself as this person. And you also look at your audience of people and you think, well, I don't want to let them down. I'm going to keep doing what I've always done because that's what makes everybody feel good. But it's so true. Now that the world is turned upside down, we can either like curl up in a ball and hide and just wait for the day it's all over, or we can say, hey, it's upside down. Now is my chance to be upside down too.
Exactly.
And I can try all these things. And I can also say no to the things that are no longer serving me. So sometimes, it could be, I don't know, it could be a workspace that maybe the person has outgrown, but you had that workspace because it looked good to your clients. Well, maybe it doesn't serve you anymore. Maybe it's time to downsize, and that's okay because everybody's doing it. You don't feel, thinking
about physical location. Like people are literally examining every aspect of themselves and their life, and just really thinking holistically, not just about what am I doing for my business, but what am I doing for myself. And so what are some of the practices, moving to, like, for example, for this show, right, and being able to connect with so many different women, but doing it fully virtually. And how different would that be if it was something you were doing at your studio, where we were both at your studio, right?
Yeah.
Just sort of reimagining, rethinking what's possible. And so that's the other thing I'm excited about is, events are now different, right? Going to live events, even galas, being able to go. And so how much has that opened it up for people who are outside of a downtown core? Where before there was a lot of cost for small businesses to go and participate in events, right? They may have had to fly down from, maybe in the north or out to Ottawa, but now you can log in, right?
Yeah.
And that's an option that didn't exist.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about that as well, because you have attended a couple of these types of events online, correct?
I have.
And I have not, and I keep thinking about maybe that's something I could do eventually. But so what is it that you love about it? What do you find makes that type of event successful? Like, what are people really
So
doing
I've
well?
gone to a few now. So I'm starting to get an idea because I've been rolling this around in my own head for reasons I think we're going to talk about later.
Okay.
And so that's one of the things that I've been sort of starting to take notes as to, what is it about these events that are really successful? And I think there's two things. There's a level, the first one I want to say is there's a level of vulnerability that I'm seeing, that people are very open about where they are, what their story is, what their struggles are. People are sort of starting with, and here's how I'm feeling, or here's an experience that happened because of COVID. And so there's a lot more vulnerability that I'm seeing in women focused events that I haven't seen in many events before, because you're there to sort of present and be an expert, and now you're there to be authentic. And so that's been just refreshing in terms of content and being able to participate and listen. And then the other piece is really I'd say a good use around, depends on what technology platform they're using, but being able to engage in a chat or in conversation. So, for example, I actually was part of an event that was hosted at the end of June for a group of girls around career mentorship. And my friend Shala and we hosted the last event. We did a vision workshop for these girls at the end of sort of a whole career focused event, and it was awesome. They had pre-recorded each one of the speakers, and this is a trend that I'm seeing as well, is that a lot of the keynotes are pre-recorded, so there's no risk of technology failure. And then whoever it is that's the speaker then comes on to engage live afterwards. So you sort of hear their keynote pre-recorded, and then they hop on and they're like, okay, and then they're live to take questions, which is quite, it's a little more efficient because now your timing's tight and your ability to not have to minimize the risk of tech issues is better.
Yes.
And so here are these girls. So for example, the luncheon that for the one that I was part of, they had a chef record how to make this delicious lunch. It was a salad in a jar. It was so good. And so she recorded all the steps for that. But then afterwards, she came on and was eating her lunch with the girls, and the girls were asking questions in the chat, and she was answering and engaging. So that was really fun. So we got to ours. We were at the end of the day, and the girls were so engaged with the questions around the vision and what they were doing and who their role model was. And we were getting text messages in the back saying, hey, you got to cut it, like your time. So I think having timekeepers is really important. You can see the fluidity of how that shows up. Having a schedule so that, especially if people are at home and they may have other responsibilities that they're managing concurrently with that event. So knowing, when the speaker that you wanted to hear, you can hop in is really quite nice. So being open with the agenda allows people to have more flexibility with their day and their ability to fully engage in the elements of whatever the event is that were the most meaningful to them. And then the last thing is having, whether it's a replay or a takeaway or something afterwards, is so helpful because you're sort of taking it in, but you can get a bit of eye fatigue after a time. And so being able to have that replay, I've found been really helpful, because there was a couple panel discussions. I was like, oh my goodness, I want to know, I want to go back. I want to hear that again. I'd never heard that concept before. I want to go back and re-listen, and the ability to go back and re-listen. Whereas if you're at a conference, it's sort of, it washed over you and you came away thinking, oh, that was fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas now you're like, engaged in a different level because you can.
Okay, that's great. And so would the organizer just make that available to the attendees to go back in and listen? It wouldn't be something that would now be public, right? Like,
I've seen different business models around that. So it depends on what the structure was, because there's the freemium model and a premium model. So in some cases, it's a cost to attend. In other cases, it's free, but the replay has a cost. Or, there's so many different business models that you can use to have an element of monetization. I've seen a lot of elements of sponsorship as well. So having some speakers with product placement. So for the snack or for an opening, I've seen some beautiful ways of how people have incorporated sponsorship with an educational component with that as well. So a lot of different, there's just so much creativity that I'm seeing. I think that the possibilities are really open and endless.
Oh, that's great. And I've never heard freemium. I feel like I learned a new word today.
Oh, well, the freemium
Never
model
heard.
is the free, but there's a cost.
Yeah,
So, for example, I'm just going to
I
use this because
love
we're
it.
doing it. We were talking about it
Yeah.
earlier. So, StreamYard right now, it's a freemium model. It's
Yes,
free at the moment with their logo. But if you want to change it to your logo, then you pay for that. Right. So
exactly.
it's the baseline. Here's what's free. And then
Yeah.
if you want to customize or add to, then there's a cost on top of that. So I've heard
Yeah.
it called the freemium model.
I love the freemium model. Okay, that's great. Brooke,
Yes.
I want to read something that you said that I
Okay.
love. Okay. And we're gonna elaborate on this now for
Okay.
this
Here we
part
go.
2 of this interview. As a healthy living coach, my passion is working with women who are sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. Yes. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. Talk to me.
Oh,
Like, come on. And so in my age bracket, and some of the viewers here in the 50 to 55 with the perimenopause, and it starts younger than that. Um, you know, okay, so I just have to do a full confession here because I know this is going to be good, and I think it's going to apply to a lot of women, and I think you can help us.
okay. Go.
Because you know about food and nutrition, and you're so good. Okay, so this is how I start my day. Ready?
Yep.
I get up in the morning. I go for a 45-minute hoof and walk.
Nice.
Then I come back. I have a huge thing of water, and then I walk my little doggy 10 minutes. Then I come back and I make a smoothie, and I put a banana in there. I put kefir in it. I put flaxseed. I put nuts in there. All the berries, all the good things. I have that. Then I have lunch. I have an avocado. I have some vegetables. I have maybe chicken breast for some protein. I'm good. Then I get home after work. I pour a glass of wine, and maybe there's some leftover chips from the weekend. I eat a couple of those while preparing a meal, which consists of a carbohydrate, a protein, a vegetable. I wolf back the meal with another glass of wine.
Okay.
And then I'm hungry again. And I get up and I start looking for sweet stuff. And then I make a nice cup of tea. I maybe have a couple of cookies. So from 5 o'clock on, my life goes to hell.
Sounds delicious though.
But it's just this whole and then there's the whole like feeling tired. I don't have the energy. Oh, I'd love to. You know what I miss, Brooke? I miss so much is the feeling I had in my 20s and 30s where I would get up early in the morning. I would work all day full time for Canada Post, get back home, be so fired up about my business that I would just push it till midnight, and I couldn't get enough. I was like, oh my God, and I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this. And now that's all changed. Like the hormones are changing. It's not that I'm no longer enthusiastic. I am, but I find those windows of enthusiasm
are bookended by a nap.
They're small. They're not bay windows. They're like, when you go to an after hours club and you got to look in that little window and give them the password to get in. I've only done that once. That's the size of the window. So tell us let's start with your story because it's so inspiring. You had some tummy problems.
I did.
It took you on another path.
So I started my food blog, many years ago. And at the time was when I was with a web development company, and my business partner created almost like an online wiki for me because I had all these recipes and they're all on note paper. And she's like, just for heaven's sakes, just start putting them online. That way it's searchable. So that's how it started. And I love food. I love cooking. It goes with the name, right? Brooke the Cook is my nickname when I was a kid. So it was, what we did. And then all of a sudden I started getting sick. So it would be a couple different things would happen. One of them is I would eat and I would instantly be exhausted, like instantly, like I had to close my eyes and have a lie down. And that we discovered was stress. It was just pure stress. And I had so little energy and my iron was so low that the energy it took to digest was too much. and my body
Wow.
would shut down to every time I ate. And so I had sort of learned about that. I learned to sort of manage and learn the signs of low iron, and then that sort of resolved itself. And then I thought, okay, so I've spent all this time and energy into cooking, and I was always making like delicious food. I knew I had a well-balanced diet. I knew that wasn't the problem. But then I started having these episodes where I literally, my stomach would swell and I would look about 6 or 7 months pregnant in a span of about 10 minutes. And it was horrifying to anyone around me. I've had my husband try and bundle me off to the hospital. I've had my supervisor at work try to like, oh my God, what just happened to you? And I would wear pashminas draped over me all the time because I never knew when it was going to happen. And I would swell up like this, and then people would freak out. So I'd always drape a pashmina so that, you know, people would think, oh, she's cold. But actually, it was just in case I swelled, I'd have some extra layers to sort of hide underneath it. And I started going to my doctor and doctors and specialists, and nobody knew what was wrong. And so eventually they sent me to a GI, gastrointestinal specialist and a liver specialist. And he said, okay, here's what I think is going on. So he did like one of those terrible tests. They sort of go inside you in all the directions to check everything out. And that was all fine. And so he said, no, I'm not seeing anything. And I said, so I've heard that IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is what the diagnosis they give you when they don't know what's wrong. And he burst out laughing, and he said, yep, that's true.
He did.
He did. And he said there's only two things that we know about it. One of them is that it can be caused by stress. And the other one is that it can be caused by a disruption in your gut bacteria. And so about a year before all this started, I'd had swine flu. And at the same time, I had a lung infection. And I ended up on 2 really heavy rounds of antibiotics. And that may have been my trigger. Plus, at the time where I was working was extremely stressful. And those two things together just wasn't enough. So it was a really long journey of healing. It was a journey of I worked with dietitians. I documented my food for almost 5 years, Monica, trying to find the source, and nothing, we couldn't figure it out. Like a glass of water could make me swell. We just couldn't figure it out. So that's what got me into becoming a health coach, is I wanted to have better conversation. I wanted to understand from my doctors, what are you looking for? What are your patterns? Like, what information am I not sharing that you need to know to help me figure out what's next? So I just started studying anatomy and biology and nutrition and gut biome and, you know, all the things that every time something new information would open up, I don't know about that. Let's go research everything I can and take a course. And so that's eventually, how I did end up healing myself. I've been without symptoms for over a year and a half now, and it's been fabulous. I've been really lucky. I had one episode about 2 months ago and I knew what had triggered it. I was feeling a little overwhelmed and wasn't paying attention to my own care and my own stress management, and sure enough, swelled up like a balloon. And I knew, okay, I've let slip the things that are important to me, which for me also include a walk, lots of water and hydration, being able to eat tons of vegetables. So these are all things that, I've learned to figure out my own triggers, and sleep for me is huge. Rest is extremely important. So I have a very consistent bedtime, all these little tips. But stress management causes more havoc in the body than anybody realizes. And that's a huge underlying factor. So I'll sort of stop there because that was a very rambling story, but that's how I led to become a health coach. And then everyone was like, can you help me? So I was like, oh, okay. So that's sort of how I sort of fell into it.
I do find your story very interesting, and it's, I think a lot of women, I had a conversation the other week with a good friend of mine. We're both kind of at the same point in this perimenopause thing. And it's like our bodies are changing, and we're both complaining about this bloating and like this extra weight around the middle. And I know that a lot of women have it, but we're like, what the hell is it? Like, and then we're identifying like like we actually had this conversation. We started talking about psychological reasons, like what is it in our life that we're not fulfilling? What's holding us back? What's stressing us out? What's, and what's the stress hormone again? Cortisol, right?
Cortisol is one of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a couple that factor in. Insulin and cortisol play a role together.
Right.
But there's one other one that ties into that, especially as you hit sort of 45 and up, you get this little bit of some people call it a tire. I think you can call it whatever you want, but there's a little bit of swelling around the middle, especially right around your belly button. And it's just a little bit that maybe wasn't there before. It's a little bit more than it used to be. And it sits a little bit higher than your pant line. It's kind of awkward to do up the button on those jeans. That spot.
Yes, that spot that when you put on pants you haven't worn in a while, the button goes.
Yes, yeah. That one. And it's interesting because that's actually a very common thing. And so what's happening is, as your body, especially as you head into perimenopause, there's a lot of the hormones, estrogen in particular, your body starts preparing. It knows. And so it actually starts storing extra hormones for you, and it stores them around your middle and your belly fat.
Oh.
So while we try to fight it because we want the nice flat belly, it's actually a gift.
Okay, interesting.
It can be a gift. And so it's figuring out how to balance what's the softness, right? There's a softness there that happens. And so what is that? And part of that's the natural process that the body's preparing for, but then balancing that with what are these sugar cravings? Where's that coming from? And so really trying to figure out what's happening in the evening. And there's a couple things, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you afterwards. There's a few triggers that I heard, but one of them is how you described your dinner. And so, you have this lovely meal, you're sort of having a nice glass of wine while you're preparing it and a few nibblies as you go. And then you sit down to eat and you just, practically all in one go, just inhale the food. And then probably about 20 to 40 minutes later, you're like, I'm starving. It's like I haven't eaten all day.
Yeah.
I'm starving. Exactly. I'm not hungry. I'm starving.
Yeah, like I'm going to chew off my husband's arm if he doesn't look it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you start hunting. And what you're going to hunt for at that point are things that are rich, right? So you talked about the cookies, things that are rich and satisfying, things that have a nice mouthfeel, things that have a lot of fat in them, things that have a lot of carbohydrates in them, things that your body wants and needs to satisfy that intense hunger that's happening. And that hunger actually can be a sign of stress. And it comes from two reasons. One of them is when you eat really quickly, your body's not going to digest the food very well. It's almost it thinks that something's happening and it wants to be prepared to run away. I always think about there's the dog, this infamous dog who's unfriendly, and the body's always waiting for it, right? And so you need to either defend yourself or run away from it. And so when you eat really quickly, your body's like, okay, but we don't have the energy or the calmness to just take in all this delicious food. We don't have the ability to fully digest it, to get out every little nutrient, all those, because you talked about, I've got my starch and I've got my vegetable and so all those phytonutrients and all of those good, healthy sources of energy and those proteins for your muscles, all those things that your body was like, okay, this is a well-balanced meal. And it wants to extract every little nutrient out of it, but instead it's going to pass it through as quickly as possible because it needs to run away. But then the insulin will come and it'll flood the body. It'll say, okay, we need to run. It'll let all the energy into your bloodstream. But then you didn't go for a run. Instead, and not a nice gentle 3K from the dog, right? Like it wasn't the mad sprint to get away from this anger that's chasing you. Instead, you had another nice glass of wine and you sat down, and then the body went, oh, hold on, I don't know what to do with this. And so then it sweeps up all of the blood sugar back out, or the sugar back out of your blood. It pops it into your liver for processing. So we didn't need it this time. We might need it next time. Quick, store this here. And then in the meantime, then your body's like, oh my goodness, we have no sugar left in the blood. We just swept it all away. We should eat. And then you get this intense sugar craving. So that's the cycle.
Oh my God.
And underneath that cycle is stress. And one of the things that you can do, the smallest change that you can make,
Tell
there's
me.
two of them. One of them is when you have your food, love the food you made.
Okay.
Appreciate you for thinking it up. and your spouse. Appreciate you and your spouse for cooking it. Sit down, look at it, smell it, and enjoy each bite. If you truly make an effort to take the time to eat, to chew, try to chew like 10, 20 times each mouthful. It'll feel awkward to chew that much. But if you think about it, your teeth is all you've got. Everything after your teeth is soft. It's not there's no teeth further down.
Yeah, that's right.
So really use your teeth as much as you possibly can, and just slowing that down. What you're sending to the body is, I'm breathing calm, I'm using my teeth, and those are signals to the body to say everything's fine. And then it'll take all of that beautiful food and it'll use all of it. And it's the smallest little thing, but that one thing can start to make the world of difference in the evening routine.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Okay, there's a couple things here. Number one, my mom is watching and she's going, I want you to call this girl every day, because she and my husband wanted to buy me a vibrating fork for my birthday once. Because they're always like, slow down. But the other thing is, Brooke, this could be a whole topic for you, for entrepreneurs, because I think as women in business, well, hey, women in general, moms, people who have a lot of stuff going on in their life, here's my to-do list here. Okay. So I'm like checking off all this stuff every day. And then I'm like, okay, it's 1 o'clock. Got to eat. Yep. Done. 10 minutes. Okay. Back to this. And then like, it's insane. And you look at Europe and you look at different cultures, and it's like eating time is a sacred time. It's when family is together. You enjoy, you have conversation, all of that stuff. And I was raised that way, but I am like hoofing it back all the time. Like I eat way too fast all the time. So this is really, really, now I understand why it's not a great idea to do that. And that could be the whole problem with the bloating and the extra weight around the middle.
Well, because all that food that was undigested, right?
Yeah.
It was still some whole pieces in there that were small, but not mashed, right? It's not like a liquid mash. That's kind of moving through. There's bacteria down there to help, but they can't chew a whole broccoli, but they can, take down the bits of florets. So as you just those two things, just while you're eating, enjoy the food. So a lot of people will converse while they're eating and watch TV or be distracted. Be present with your food is one of them. And then again, those two signals is the physical chewing and the gentle, like the calm breathing. And those are the things that will tell your body we're eating and everything's okay. Because the other thing people do is they're in a conversation. And there's always one person who's talking and the other person eats. And then the other person is behind, and then they quickly catch up, right? So just enjoying the food.
Okay. Oh, that's so great. So simple.
I know. And you prepared it. You spent all this effort of thinking it through.
Yes.
And to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
harder. It sounds simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try. I'm going to be thinking of you when I'm chewing 10. Can I start with 10 times?
Start with 10.
Okay.
Start with 10. Yeah.
And I'll try to make my way to 20 times. So there's another thing that we got to talk about.
Yes.
How's our time? We're good.
I know. I told you.
We are good. I know. So I wanted to talk to you about the dream programs.
Yes.
Tell us about the dream programs. This is absolutely amazing.
So this is where my heart place is. I've been volunteering with an organization called Soroptimist International for, gosh, I think like 14 years, maybe longer. And I love it because the thing that they really focus on is empowering women and girls through education. And these are all the things that are important to me. And here as I am, I went to school for way too long. So these are things that are important to me. Yeah. And so, and they do it through two different ways. And so one of them is called Live Your Dream. And it is an award. In Canada, it's a scholarship. And ultimately, it is for a woman who is the head of her household. And that could mean many things. Sometimes it's a single mom, but sometimes it's a woman who is the one who's out in the workforce supporting her whole family. And she's in school, registered in school, post-secondary, in order to improve the socioeconomic status of her family. So there's a lot of reasons why that could be. So it could be she's entering the workforce. It could be that she is upgrading her skills so she could get a better job. Lots of different reasons. It is based on financial need, but the application is quite it's fairly straightforward. I've got a link to that on my Instagram as well, because our applications are currently open, and anyone anywhere in North America can apply for that award. And the reason why I'm so excited about it is a cash scholarship for her to use however she needs. If it's books, if it's tuition, if it's daycare, if it's transportation, if it's rent, like whatever her need is in that moment, that's what, there's no restrictions on the award at all, which is important.
Yeah.
And then the other program I talked a little bit beforehand about is the Dream It, Be It.
Okay.
And so this year, we actually partnered. So the club that I belong to is Dundas and Castor Flamborough, so in sort of the greater Hamilton area. But we partnered with one of our sister clubs out in Grand Erie. So they do theirs as an annual conference, and they have speakers come across from all over. And so the chef at lunch and a few different others as well. Yeah. And what they did is they were going to have this big event in April, and they had a steering committee of girls who helped them plan it all out. And then, of course, it was canceled. Mm-hmm. So they kept up a weekly ongoing check-in with the girls, and they brought in speakers, and they kept it going and made it a weekly thing. And then the girls said, could we do this for others? And so they decided to do a province-wide conference, full-day conference, because they had all the speakers lined up, and they changed the date and made it happen. And so it was fabulous. It was absolutely fabulous. And so the Dream It, Be It program, what our club has done is we work with a smaller group of girls over a period of 8 weeks, and we deliver the same curriculum, but we do it as a series of small group discussions. And so we do have some guest speakers who come in, but really the focus is on dream it, be it. What do you want to be? What is your career? What do boundaries, healthy boundaries look like? What does being able to envision your future look like? What does goal setting look like? It's all the practical tips that we need, but also in combination with what types of careers are there available? And the answer is any and all for women and girls. And so really focusing around bringing in diversity of the trades and all different kinds of work, so that girls can see that there are so many more options for what it is that they want to do.
Wow, that is incredible. Amazing.
So those are the two programs. And then we do a fundraiser for them every year. So the one that we have going on right now, I actually took my coaching program and I moved it into a self-study opportunity. So it's a chance for anyone who's trying to sort of figure out I'm not really happy where I am in my career or in my life. I don't feel like I have enough meaning. I don't have enough purpose. And I hear that so often from women. I just feel like I'm stuck in a rut, and I know that I'm capable of so much more. I just don't know what's wrong. I just feel trapped. And so sort of walking through is a 6-step process to walk through how to open up yourself. And so we have that right now available as a digital download, as an ebook and a workbook. Wow. And then there's some supports to go along with that as well. And so we're selling that as our fundraiser at the moment.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you know what I'll do, Brooke? I'm going to leave the link for that under the video here. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So great. So I didn't realize that program, there was a huge fundraising component back to. That's great. So and so what you're offering is that's open to anybody, any age, any walk of life.
Exactly.
Anyone looking for a change in their life.
And any gender. So it is written in the female for the sake of simplicity, but it's open to any person. And so, and it's really sort of exploring who you are and what your true life's purpose is. Because once you tune into that, you talked about how many things I do. I really only do one thing, Monica. I just do them in different facets, and they just have a different expression of the one thing. I'm always just living my purpose. I'm living to the thing that brings me meaning and joy. And so when you have that, it looks like a lot from the outside, but from the inside, it's just one thing with many different directions out.
Oh, that's so great. Okay. So very quickly, because we got to get this in here too. I want to talk about weightlifting and motorcycles.
So as part of my journey, okay, this one's gonna be quick. As
Yeah.
part of my journey to health, I
Yeah.
ended up joining a gym. And long story short, the trainer they assigned me to went on pat leave. So I got a new trainer, and he has been my coach now for quite a while, and he has changed my life entirely. I thought I knew what strength training was until I met him. And
Okay. And I do want to say one thing about him is I want you to, you don't have to say what age he is, but there is an age difference between the two of you, which I read that and I was like, okay, that's cool, because I would almost be intimidated to do that. I would think, oh, I need someone my age who understands, you know, so please share that part as well, because I think that's really cool.
so he's 20 years my junior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And honestly, Monica, I learn from him every time. He challenges my thinking. He challenges my perspective. He challenges my weight. And I mean that literally. Like when I met him, my goal was I want to be able to lift 40 pounds, 50 pounds max. I want to help around the house. That's like a half a couch. Like I just want to be able to, like, or a table, right? Like I want to be able to just help, right? With renovations and stuff. And he's like, okay, so I want you to get down and pick up this bar. I'm like, okay. He's like, I don't care about form, just pick up the bar and stand up with it. So I did. And up until then, the heaviest thing I'd held in my hands was, you know, maybe two 15-pound dumbbells. But I didn't think of it as 30 pounds. I thought about it as 15 pounds. So I thought I could lift about 15 pounds. And then all of a sudden he's like, okay, well, you just met your goal. So what do you want to do next? And I said, what? And he said, well, that was 45 pounds. You picked it up, no problem. So what do you want to do now? And I said, oh my God, I have no idea. So I said, well, my answer is just yes. I'm going to do, like, my commitment to him in that moment. I said, Zach, I will do anything. And if it hurts, I will speak up, but I will not say no, just out of fear that I can't do it. And so my heaviest deadlift, my single 1 rep max to date is 165 pounds. He's got me on a program. We went on a hike for the first time on Sunday. I haven't seen him since March. It was awesome. We went on a social distance hike. So it's been great. It's been great. I still train with him 3 hours a week, but we do it through Zoom. And so motorcycles. So one of the things that I really learned from weightlifting is that when you have a level of confidence physically in your joints, it brings that confidence spreads into everywhere else in your life. When you know that you can stand in the ground and pick up something heavy, then it translates outside of your joints and into the rest of your life. And so when my spouse was having a landmark birthday, and I said, you know, I've got this bucket list. He's like, you're always talking about your bucket list. And I said, yeah, I know, but one of the things he's like, you make it up as you go along. I said, no. I've always wanted to get a motorcycle license. And at the time when I was a teenager, I had a firm no from my parents, and I didn't really have enough means to do it on my own without their consent. And I said, I've always wanted to get my license. So we did. We said, we bought all, like, a helmet and a jacket, and we went and took the test. And Monica, I fell probably about 5 times the first day. Like, I didn't get it at all. Wow. And so I went back the second day, and I really struggled. And I went through the test, because you sort of end with your license at the end, your M1. And I got to the very last test, and I lost the last point on the last test. And they were like, that's it. They took the bike from me and they walked it back. And then I sat on the side and waited for my spouse. And I was like, this sucks. And so he said, what are you going to do? You're going to take it again? And I said, I don't know. So finally I was like, yeah, I went. I decided to take it again. So I went back, and I had a blast. I had an absolute blast. My coaches said, you know, I learned to ride on a Grom. Go get one of those. So I got this little Z125. It's like a little clown bike, and I had so much fun on it. And I had such a great time. So we've since learned how to do it. But I mean, part of it was, you know, the reason why I kept falling is because I kept looking at my hands, and when you look down, you go down. And it was, so a huge part of it was just the confidence to trust my body to be able to know where the brake was and operate the brake. And I didn't need to look at my hands to turn the throttle. So part of it was around where your eye contact is, and having, like, it's 99% confidence, and the other 1% is having the physical strength to be on the bike. And so I was at a point where I was strong enough physically that if I dropped the bike, I could pick it up, no problem. But could I also,
amazing,
you know, have the confidence to do it? And so now we do a lot of, like, parking lot practice, and I just learned how to. You start with the handles all the way turned, and you lean on the bike, literally, like, off the bike, and then you just go. And so now I can do a corner that's one wheel width, so I can turn the bike 90 degrees across the distance of one wheel. And it, came into that thinking, I'm gonna fall again, but I haven't fallen since. So
good for you. That's so great. So you guys are out there riding now, you and your husband?
We are. We have one bike between the two of us, but we went 2 weeks ago. We got me a full face helmet, so now my jaw is protected, and armored pants. And so if you ever see someone in a white helmet, white jacket with big fluorescence, because I'm a high vis kind of gal.
Yeah.
And then so I've got that going. And then we did the we've got a little red Honda that we're going with right now. And then hopefully next year, fingers crossed, we'll have an electric bike. That's the plan.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like a full electric motorcycle. I just realized I'm not plugged in. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah.
So so full electric motorcycle. So that's which will be silent and gliding. And anyway, so that's the goal for next year. They just started importing them into Canada. We're like beyond excited.
Oh, that's great. Good for you, Brooke. Wow. See, this is amazing. We're like ending on a high note here. This is very inspiring. So anybody out there who might be holding back from a dream, just do it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. The worst that happens, you're going to fall, and then you just stand up and you keep going. You keep trying till you get it.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a couple of shout outs here. Oh, we actually have a shout out from Stuart Sachs in Texas. Hello, Monica, from your friends in Texas. We love you. So this couple, they're amazing. Talk about people who have pivoted. I used to sell jewelry to them. They had a little boutique in the Florida Keys.
Nice.
Yep. And then they moved to Texas. And now Stuart is hosting a talk show as well. And he's actually interviewing artists. So they were very, very exclusive with who they would pick. And they met like all these talented artists at all these trade shows across the States, like in Atlanta and everything. So when you went into their boutique, you would always see things that nobody else had. Nice. So he's so great at keeping in touch. So he's been interviewing. Yeah, that's great. So, hello, Texas. Brooke, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for all your time. And I want to invite you over to an Instagram after party if you've got a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Lovely. So thank you for this. This has been really, really inspiring. And I will make sure to get all your links up here so people can get in touch with you and keep doing what you're doing. You're absolutely amazing. And a lady named Kim Gordon, who you might know, she just chimed in. Hello, Monica and Brooke. Very inspiring to help women, and girl, dream it, be it. You know what? I think Kim Gordon, I know she... I know
Hi,
she's...
Mom.
I'm trying to think of how I'm going to say this. She represents a skincare line, and I think that maybe they would be interested in your rose petal formula. If anyone's going to promote you with that, it'll be your mama. Yeah. Oh, God. Thanks, Brooke. We'll see you on Instagram.
Awesome. Monica, this is such an honor. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
All right, we'll see you there.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. That was a lot of fun. Brooke is so talented, and she just blows me away with all of the good that she does in the world. And as promised, later on, I'm going to post all of her links so you can check her out. If you happen to be watching this video on YouTube, I would love for you to subscribe to our channel. We have a whole library now of conversations with incredible female entrepreneurs and business people, and just the women in my life that I really, really love and I want to introduce you to. So go ahead and subscribe, and we will see you again next week for another episode of the Get to Know Her Show. Have a lovely afternoon.